the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today for you I have my December wrap-up part 1, which I find hilarious because I'm sure you're watching this in January because I got so behind on filming videos. But yeah, let's just dive right in. This is December part 1. So I finished Someday Maybe by Netgalley. I'm probably not saying that right. In the first half of the month. And I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. We are following a woman. She is married and she finds her husband and he has committed suicide. And it's really following that grief and what that looks like. Like, people are basically expecting her to get better like overnight. Her mother-in-law is being absolutely crazy. Her work wants her to get back to work and she's living it. She's living the hard life right now. So lots of triggers for this one. The only reason this didn't get a 5th star from me was because I didn't cry. I really thought this was gonna like break me. And while it did have like strong tones and messages and like things, it just never emotionally pulled at my heartstrings, which makes no sense considering the topic. So I don't know if it was the audiobooks doing or my doing or what, but I didn't cry. So it got 4 stars. I also finished Northern Stars by Brittany C. Cherry. This is the 4th book in the Compass series. This book just recently came out. I believe this is the final one because they've all been like northeast, south, west, you know, the compass, right? So we are following this couple and I was very unsure of how they connected to the main story. But they meet as children, they're next door neighbors, and they have this really great best friendship growing up, and then they decide that they're going to start dating. He is a, like, actor, and she is, it sounds like silly, like, he's an actor, and that's his personality, and her personality is, like, she likes to bake. She's kind of like that homebody. She gets picked on a lot about her size, and they end up deciding to try dating, and something happens that obviously breaks them up. And then it's like years later, and he is coming back into town for a bit, and can they re-spark that? I gave it 4 stars, but I will say this is probably my least favorite in the entire series. It felt like it just dragged a lot, and we are with them as children and teenage life for a very long time. I started getting worried that this was an entire teenage story, the way we were with them as teenagers for so long. And I just felt like there were a lot of themes and things that were just unnecessarily repetitive that didn't necessarily need to be there. But it was still a Brittany C. Cherry book, which is really good, so I still gave it 4 stars, even though it's probably my least favorite out of the 4. Then I read The Christmas Murder Game, and I had this through Netgalley, and I was so excited to read this one, and it just failed miserably for me. So we're following this woman, and her mother had died years and years prior, and now her aunt has passed away, the one that basically, or was it her aunt or her grandmother? Her aunt, and she basically was the one who helped raise her, and so she's going back to this mansion. I guess they used to play this like Christmas game growing up. And this year the rules basically have changed, and if you win her estate, and she thinks that she's going to possibly get a little bit more than that. She's going to find out potentially what really happened to her mother, and this had like all things that sounded like it should have been fantastic for me, but it just felt so flat, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. I found myself like trudging through it so bad to the point that like it obviously had been released by the time I picked it up, and it was on Hoopla, so as an audiobook, so I downloaded the audiobook just to get through it because I felt like if I didn't, I was never going to finish it, which is such a bad sign. So unfortunately, that got 3 stars from me. And then something that took me by complete surprise is Shadows of Pecan Hollow by Caroline Frost. Now, this was a book that I was really, really excited for. Like, I had it on my books on my radar list, and I bought it, and I was like, I'm going to read it so fast, and like, then I never did, and then I was like scared that it was going to be slow and I wasn't going to like it. And then I gave it 5 stars. Guys, this book is so interesting and different. So we're following this woman as a teenager, and she is broke and like homeless and dealing with like foster care situations that she doesn't like, and she's kind of escaped that, and she's kind of trying to find any way to survive. And she ends up trying to break into this guy's car for his McDonald's. And then they end up teaming up, and essentially they almost become like a Bonnie and Clyde situation. And then one day something happens that splits them up, and he goes to jail, and she moves on with her life, and she goes and settles into Pecan Hollow. So we're kind of getting like dual perspectives of like her as a teen and her now. And this was a lot. But it was so good. Like, I was scared that this was going to be slow, and, like, I did not want to put this down. I'm pretty sure I finished in, like, 2 days because I could not stop reading this one. So, this one was really good. 5 stars. I'm glad I finally picked it up. I read 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. And, again, this is another one that, like, has an amazing premise. Very Agatha Christie-esque. And I didn't like it. Sorry, I have like a scratchy throat. I'm trying so hard not to cough. But in this one, these 9 people all get a list with names on it. They have no idea who the other people are on this list. And then suddenly, people from this list start dying. And they have to figure out how these lives are interconnected. Oh my goodness, I should have brought water up here. How these lives are interconnected. Why are they getting murdered one by one? It was so boring. And I just did not care about any of them. I couldn't even understand what, like, obviously as a reader, we don't know why they're connected either. But I just, like, didn't care. And it was so hard to keep everybody straight. I'm going to pause this and come right back because I feel like I'm going to cough the rest of this video and I have a lot of books to talk about. So hold on. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Okay. So I didn't really care about any of them or how they were connected or anything. And then we're in this character's head and he starts talking about Agatha Christie's and Then There Were None, which is by far my favorite Agatha Christie book in the world to this day. But they end up going into an entire conversation about the original title of that book. And I hate it because the original title has the N-word in it, which is why it's been changed. And it had an entire conversation about it being called what it was originally called and literally using the N-word. And I'm like, here's a whiter than white man putting the N-word in his book. Then we have narrators who are narrating the audiobook, white as can be, using the N-word without it being, like, censored or anything in its fullness. Why? It had no place in this. It's not even like, they added absolutely nothing to the story. It was literally just a page for no reason. It did not need to be in here whatsoever. We didn't need to acknowledge it. We didn't even need to mention it. We didn't even need to talk about it. So I gave this 3 stars, even though I really would love to give it, like, nothing. And I feel like me and Peter Swanson are breaking up. I have too many hit or miss books with him. I'm, like, looking at him right there, and I feel like I've liked 50%, if that, of what I've read by him. And I can't do it. So I already canceled my pre-order for his next book because I will not do that again. That was, no. Now, a book that I did really like listening to is Love on Saffron by Kim Fay. And this is this novel of friendship, food, and love. And it was this, like, feel-good, cozy book that I really enjoyed listening to. Look how short this is. It was so sweet. Okay, so we're following 2 women. And it's in the 1960s. And one of the women ends up writing a letter to this person who writes, I believe, articles. And so this woman, like, writes articles. And so she writes a letter to the magazine, and it gets forwarded to her. She, like, sends, like, a little bit of saffron with it. And it just sparks this, like, unlikely friendship between these 2 women. And they are writing letters to each other, and they're talking about food. and friendship and like love and finding life again, and just it was so cute and sweet. And I just like, if you're looking for a little wholesome read, this is definitely it for you. It's a little historical fiction, but it feels contemporary and food and just it's everything. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I didn't give it the 5th star because I was like really, really liking it. But then by the end, like it just felt like it ended, and I was like, wait a minute, did they miss the ending? Like I like totally somehow didn't even realize the book ended. Like it got to the point where it was like an author's note or something, and I was like, oh, it started reading recipes to me, and I was like, oh, what? And I was very confused. So I was like, if it had felt like a solid ending, maybe I would have given it 5 stars, but still very solid read. Very happy I picked this one up. I feel like I would reread this one with my eyeballs next time. And then I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. And now, guys, now I know what you guys are all buzzing about. Guys, this book was so good. I read this in one day. I picture this up being like, yeah, I probably won't really get very far. And I read this whole thing in one day. I read it as an ebook. My library hold finally came through. And I gave this one 5 stars. We're following a girl who is from the city. She's a doctor. She's trying to be everything her parents want her to be. She used to have a boyfriend who she's recently dumped, who her parents would love her to get back together with, and he is a doctor and a jerk. And she's on the way home from a funeral. Her car breaks down in this guy's town, and it's very like small town vibes, and he ends up helping her out, and they end up in a situation at a bar, and this was so good. And there's so many conversations that happen in this book, and even like at the end, there's this whole thing about what she's coming to terms with her parents that were just like so many things that like I could relate to, and that like conversations I've had with myself and with others, and just it's not an easy read by any means when it comes to like the other parts of like really, so like besides like following the strict romance, like there's other things in here that can be triggering and very hard to read about, so definitely look that up. But like, guys, I can't believe I was sleeping on this. I'm definitely going to go back and try to read more of her books because this was fantastic. And then I started Addict Child by Lola J, and I got 48 pages in, and then I put it down because I wasn't really reading a lot of books physically at the time, so I put it down as a break, and I haven't picked it back up yet, but I'm hoping, because I have, let's see, today is the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30, 31, 4 more days. I'm hoping to read The Rewind and then maybe come back and finish this, but we'll see. I really would love to finish this year, but I have a feeling that's not going to happen, but we could try. And then I listened to All Snowed In for Christmas by Sarah Morgan. This is like my epitome, not epitome, that's not the right word, like my ultimate, like every Christmas I have to read a Sarah Morgan book, and I did. This one was interesting because the back synopsis talks about like the family is getting together for Christmas, and then an uninvited guest comes, and it's the Christmas that you'll never forget, right? Well, the first like 40% of this was all just like the buildup of getting the family even there. The uninvited, like we got introduced to the uninvited guests, but like the true like them coming together for this uninvited situation, like it took almost 40 to 50% to get into it, which kind of threw me off. So like I feel like if I didn't know that going into it, I wouldn't have cared, but I kept like hunting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it, and it like wasn't coming, and I was like, where are you? So it was a good story. I just felt like I went into it with the wrong expectations because I read the back. So like if you know like that's not going to happen, like you won't find yourself waiting for it. And then the ending, there's one character who her storyline just like, not that it weirded me out, but it just felt like it like got wrapped up. Like we can't have this be a series, so let's wrap it up really fast. So it was good. You know me. I will continue reading Sarah Morgan at Christmas time, but 4 stars. And then I read All I Want for Christmas by, I called her Amanda Knox by accident. That is the like person who killed her roommate in Italy, wrong person. Well, no, she didn't. She got exonerated from that, I think. But I meant to say Maggie Knox, which is a dual authorship. And they came out with a new holiday read. I love the holiday swap last year, so I could not wait to get to All I Want for Christmas. And we're following like two musicians, one who has like a really famous musician father, and then the other one who is just like trying to make it in the business. And they're on this like singing reality show together. And they are starting off as singles, but like the world kind of loves them together, so the world kind of makes them go into this like fake dating situation, and we all know how that goes. And unfortunately, I gave this one 3 stars. This one had so much like communication issues where like hold on, if they had just talked to each other, it wouldn't be an issue, which is fine. You want to do that once or twice, I guess. I don't support that, but I get it. But I felt like it was like every other chapter. So it was like whiplash of like, just talk to each other. Just talk to each other. Like, stop causing all this drama for no reason. So unfortunately, 3 stars. Because besides that, I really liked this one. Like, I really could have given this one 4, even 5 stars if we didn't have so much like back and forth stupidity. If we didn't have that, this would have been perfect. I loved them together. I loved the whole situation. I loved the whole setting. I loved the conversations that were being had, but like when they were having them. So I loved everything else, and I hated giving this one 3 stars. But I will try them again next year if they come out with something else. And then going into the second half of the second half of December, I had started Marrying the Ketchups by Jennifer Close, which I will review in my next part of my wrap-up. So, again, another cliffhanger. Keep you guessing. All right. So, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.